I counted them at 4 this morning, the irregular beats. I woke up with my hand already flat on my chest, the way you do when you've done it enough times that the body learns to check before the mind does. In the dark, Kevin was asleep. I lay there and counted. 1 irregular, 2 normal, 3 normal, 1 irregular, 2 normal, 1 normal, 1 normal, 1 irregular. 26 of these episodes in the last 4 years. I know because I write them down now. The date, the approximate duration, whether I felt dizzy or just wrong. Dr. Okafor wants the log. She calls them paroxysmal supraventricular tachycardia, SVT. She says it like it's an acronym that should mean something to me by now. It does. It means I lie in the dark at 4 in the morning counting my own heartbeat the way I used to count the keys on my key ring before a showing. In 1993, I weighed 152 pounds, and I thought I was going to die of embarrassment. Now I weigh 148, and I actually might. There's a piece of paper on this table, not from a Beaumont Heart Institute, not from some dramatic disclosure in a doctor's office. Mine is a folded echocardiogram report from Dr. Sandra Okafor at Northwestern Medicine, dated February 11th, 2026. I've read it so many times the fold lines are starting to separate. The language is polite in the way cardiologists have learned to be polite. Mitral valve regurgitation, mild to moderate, stable. Aortic valve regurgitation, mild, unchanged. Recommend cardiac surgery consultation if symptoms progress. The word is unchanged. I'm supposed to find that reassuring. For 25 years I've been reading reports with the word unchanged, and I have not yet decided if it means the danger isn't growing or just that the damage has already decided what it is. My pill organizer is open on the table beside the report. 7 compartments. The Monday slot is still full. I forgot to take the metoprolol succinate yesterday. 50 milligrams, once daily, for the arrhythmia and to keep the heart rate stable enough to not create additional wear on valves that are already, in the language of echocardiograms, compromised. The aspirin is in there too. The 2 fish oil soft gels from my own initiative, which Dr. Okafor calls unlikely to hurt. It's Tuesday morning. Kevin left at 6:15 for golf. He plays 3 mornings a week now that he's retired. He doesn't know I haven't taken yesterday's pill. He doesn't know most of the things in this report because the way I explain them to Kevin is the way I used to explain inspection findings to clients who were already in love with a house. You lead with the good news. You let them hear stable and unchanged before you say the word surgical. I've been doing that for 25 years. You need to understand what 1993 looked like in Naperville, Illinois. I was 34 years old. Lauren was 5. Matt was 8. Kevin had just been promoted to product development at Motorola, and we were the family in the corner house on Whispering Creek Court, with the 2-car garage and the new deck and the school district that people moved to the suburb specifically to get into. I was in my 6th year at Remax Premier, and I was good at it. Not great, good. But in DuPage County, Illinois in 1993, good had a specific visual requirement for a woman in residential real estate. You were looking at your clients. Your clients were looking at you. What they saw was supposed to confirm that you knew how to make things presentable. I was 34 years old and 152 pounds and 5 feet 4 inches. And I was technically not overweight by any clinical measure. But clinical measures don't show houses in Oak Brook and Burr Ridge, where the listing clients were 62-year-old surgeons' wives who weighed 118 pounds. They were the benchmark, not a medical chart. Diane Morrow. She was 44 then, been at Remax 11 years, big producer. Diane mentioned the clinic on a Thursday in October. We were waiting for a response on a counteroffer on a house in Lisle. She'd lost 22 pounds. I could see it in her face. She said, "It's 2 prescriptions, a doctor, 15 minutes, 1 appointment. Insurance covers part of it." I went from 160 to 138 in 3 months. I asked her for the name. The clinic was on the 3rd floor of a building in the Oak Brook Mall corridor. Not the mall itself, but one of those professional plazas adjacent to it. Beige carpeting. A receptionist named Patricia who typed your weight into a chart each visit and handed you a paper bag with the month's prescription inside. The physician was Dr. Lloyd Kessler. He was 51 years old. I saw him for approximately 12 to 15 minutes per visit, once a month. He weighed me. He noted the number. He renewed the prescription, $45 per visit, cash, because the insurance reimbursement for weight management counseling was inconsistent, and the office had stopped waiting for it. 2 prescriptions, Pondimin, fenfluramine, 20 milligrams, 3 times per day, Fastin, phentermine, 30 milligrams, every morning. I started in January of 1993. By the end of February, I had lost 9 pounds, and I had not felt hungry once. 0 appetite. Not reduced, 0. I'd eaten because I knew I should, but the hunger was simply not there. Not suppressed, not replaced by something else, just absent. Like a noise you've heard your whole life that suddenly stops, and the silence is so complete you don't know how you heard anything before. The first week there was dry mouth, constant, and insomnia. Not bad insomnia, just the kind where you wake at 2:30 fully alert for 40 minutes and then fall back asleep. And a slight elevation in my resting heart rate that I noticed, but did not investigate because nobody told me to investigate it. In 14 years of residential real estate, I staged a lot of houses. Staging is the professional term for making a space look better than it is. You bring in furniture that photographs well, even if no one would live with it. You replace the owner's family photos with generic landscapes. You put a small bowl of potpourri in the bathroom to neutralize whatever smell has accumulated. You paint the front door a color that photographs as cheerful online. You cover the carpet stains with area rugs. The most important skill in staging is identifying what a buyer will see in the first 45 seconds of a showing and making sure those 45 seconds are immaculate. Because buyers make decisions in the first 45 seconds. Everything after that is them constructing a rational explanation for a decision they already made at the door. The fen-phen staged me. By May of 1993, I weighed 129 pounds. I had closed 11 houses in 5 months, which was the best pace of my career to that point. Kevin said I looked beautiful, and the way he said it, like he was surprised, like he'd forgotten, or like he was finally seeing something he'd been waiting to see. I heard that adjective in a register I hadn't heard it in a long time. Clients sat a little differently in the consultation chairs. Other agents looked at me the way I used to look at Diane. I staged 240 homes in 14 years. I knew everything about making something look better than it was. I just didn't know I was practicing on myself. The problem with staging is structural. You can cover the crack in the foundation drywall. You can put a plant in front of the soft spot in the floor. You can open all the windows on a warm day so the buyer smells cut grass and not mold. But the crack is still there. The soft spot is still there. The mold is still there. Every inspection report that matters is the one the seller doesn't want you to read. I sold the heart I would need at 67 to the version of me that needed to weigh 129 at 34. I sold it as is. In 1996, the clinic transitioned me to Redux, Dexfenfluramine, 15 milligrams twice daily. FDA approved June that year. Dr. Kessler said it was the newer formulation, cleaner, better receptor profile. I didn't ask what that meant. I was down to 124 pounds and I'd closed 47 houses that year, and the drug had been approved by the federal government, so there was nothing left to question. I took Redux every day from June 1996 until September 12, 1997. On September 12, 1997, I was driving to a showing in Glen Ellen. The radio was on, WBEZ, midday. The announcer said the FDA was requesting voluntary withdrawal of Pondimin and Redux, that studies had found cardiac valve abnormalities in users, that approximately 6 million Americans had taken the combination. I pulled into the Jewel Osco parking lot on Geneva Road. I turned off the radio. I sat there with the engine running. My first thought was not, I have heart damage. My first thought was, how am I going to keep the weight off? I sat there long enough that I was late for the showing. The clients were already at the house when I arrived. I apologized and said there had been traffic on the 355. There was no traffic on the 355. I hadn't moved. Dr. Alan Firth was my cardiologist in Naperville, 53 years old, voice like he'd been trained specifically to not cause alarm. He always led with, "The good news is, October 1997 echocardiogram." The good news was that the changes were mild. "Come back in 6 months." I heard, "You're fine." I drove home and made dinner and told Kevin the doctor said everything looked okay. In 2001, the follow-up showed progression. Dr. Firth said, "You have some structural changes from the medication. Mitral valve is showing mild to moderate regurgitation. Aortic valve is mild. We need to watch this carefully." And then he used a word I had been avoiding. He said damage. He said it the way you say a word when you're worried the patient is going to minimize it. He was right to be worried. I left residential real estate at the end of 2003. I told people, and myself, that I wanted to spend more time with the children before Matt went to college. Matt was already in his freshman year at Purdue by then. The truth was that second and third showings, the ones where you walk through a house twice, up and down the stairs checking every room, I was counting stairs. 14 stairs in a typical split level. I was counting whether I would have enough breath at the top. I was sitting in my car between showings and waiting until I stopped being aware of my own heart. Not pounding, just present, the wrong kind of present. I filed with the wives settlement in 2002. There was a class action administrator, forms, documentation requirements. I needed my records from Dr. Kessler. The diet clinic had closed in 1999, but the records were still held by a billing service in Westmont. I was assigned to the cardiac damage category, mild to moderate valvular regurgitation. I received a check. I did not open the envelope for 3 days. When I finally looked at the number, my first thought was, this is a market value. This is what the heart is worth in the settlement tier. I know market values. I built a 14-year career on market values. I deposited the check without telling Kevin what category I was in. The moment I understood exactly what had happened, not the medical version, the real version, was not September 1997 in the Jewel Osco parking lot. It was not the 2001 echocardiogram. It was a night in 2004, Matt calling from his sophomore year at Purdue, and I was in the kitchen at 11 at night, standing on the scale after eating half a biscotti with my coffee, calculating whether I needed to compensate the next day. I had been doing that calculation in parallel with every other calculation in my life for 11 years. The fen-phen was gone, the habit it had built, the monitoring, the accounting, the constant low-grade arithmetic. That had stayed and found its own way to run. Not hunger, not appetite. The compulsion had been built out of something else entirely, and the drug had just been the first architecture. The folded paper in the drawer in the kitchen is not the settlement check. That's long gone. The folded paper is the original intake sheet from Dr. Kessler's clinic, January 1993. The paper Patricia typed with my name at the top and wrote the dosages by hand in the margin. Carol Mitchell, Pondimin, 20 milligrams, TID, Fastin, 30 milligrams, QAM. I kept it. I don't know exactly why I kept it. It's not evidence of anything that hasn't already been adjudicated. It's not a document anyone needs. I've had 33 years to throw it away. But it's in the drawer between the takeout menus and the rubber bands, folded in 4, and every time I see it, I remember that Patricia had neat handwriting, loops on the capitals, small and precise. I think about Patricia sometimes. I wonder if she knows what happened to the names in those charts. Diane Morrow moved to Phoenix in 2005. We stopped talking around 2002, around the time of the settlement. I think she was also in the settlement, but we never discussed it directly. I heard from a mutual contact in 2020 that Diane had a bypass in 2019. She was 68 years old. I don't have her contact information anymore. She said it was just 2 prescriptions. I think about that sentence more than I think about almost anything Diane ever said to me, and she was a very good agent who said useful things for 11 years. This morning, Tuesday, 7:15 a.m. The gray February light is coming through the voile curtain on the breakfast nook window. The pendant lamp overhead barely competes with the gray. Kevin's coffee cup is still in the drying rack from yesterday. He washes his own cup, always has. 39 years of marriage, the only domestic habit that has never once changed. The digital display on the stove says 7:18 now. The echocardiogram report. The open pill organizer. Monday's compartment still full. I weigh 157 pounds this morning, 5 pounds more than when I started the fen-phen in January 1993, after 4 years and 8 months of a drug that was supposed to solve the problem permanently, and 29 years of trying every other thing. Weight Watchers 3 separate times, Allie, Slim Fast, walking at 5 in the morning along the path by the DuPage River, in the dark, in February, in Illinois, which requires a specific kind of willingness. Nothing has ever worked the way the fen-phen worked. That's the part nobody tells you in the settlement documents. Kevin will be home from golf by 9:30. He'll come in through the garage, pour himself coffee from the pot I made at 6, ask if I want to do anything today. He'll look at me the way he always looks at me. He'll say something like he's been saying for 39 years, and he always means it. Kevin still says I look beautiful. I know he means it. I just can't figure out whether that means anything anymore. I sold 240 homes in 14 years. I knew how to read the inspection report. I knew what foundation issues meant in the disclosure. I just didn't know I was the seller.